What's up, everybody? How is everybody doing this evening? I actually didn't know that there was going to be a debate tonight until Crystal Jenkins texted me and said, "Hey, do you want to do a live stream uh, during the debate? Do you want to live stream the debate?" Um, and I agreed to do it. So here we are. Blanch, I think, is finishing up a live on his channel right now. And then Crystal will be joining me before long. So anyway, how are y'all doing this evening? For those of you uh, who are frequent visitors of the channel, ordinarily on Thursday nights, I'll be doing a kind of book review, as it were. So we're taking a break from that tonight, and we'll be picking back up on that next Thursday. So I see Angel Wings. How are you today, Angel? Mr. Deontay Blade Ford. How are you, sir? See Shara Joel, or is it Joel? Shara Joel. How are you this evening? So what are you all looking for in the debate tonight? What questions do you think are the most pressing? Is it Israel and Hamas? Is it the economy, inflation? What all are you? Where are my words? What are you going to be looking for tonight in tonight's debate? I know I'm not going to really be expecting much. In fact, I find political debates to be repulsive. I find them to be disgusting because it's really like WWE. You have these politicians who are getting up there and they're using one-liners, they're using slogans, they're making all these grandiose promises, half of which aren't even within their constitutional bounds of their office. And I think it's really a picture of how far America has fallen. That's my honest opinion when it comes to these debates. Very rarely do you come across a debate, whether it be a senatorial debate, a mayoral debate, a gubernatorial debate, or a presidential debate. Very rarely do you come across a debate where the political figures are discussing matters in a substantive way that are actually within the confines of their constitutional role. Very rarely do you come across such a debate. And again, I find it utterly disgusting. Some of you might say that Vivek Ramaswamy brought a kind of glimmer of hope when he was involved in the presidential primaries. But even him, I wasn't completely sold on, because a lot of the talking points that he were touting throughout the primaries were talking points that were relatively new to him. And it's almost as if he did a crash course on and leading up to the primaries, the couple months leading up to the primaries, and then he echoed all those talking points. Whereas if you read his book that he released not even a year before running for president, and you look at a lot of the things that he stood for, you'll find that he was kind of like, limp wrist libertarian on many issues, including abortion. And so I wasn't completely convinced that, here's this based conservative who just gets it. I wasn't convinced by that as much as I was convinced of the fact that he is someone like a Martin Luther King who is a very good talker. He knows how to put together sentences very well. And he's articulating talking points from a side of the American electorate that is fed up and has an idea of the fact that America has gone astray, has run amok. But when you listen closely to a lot of the things that Vivek Ramaswamy was talking about, you'll find that he was really just like the rest of them. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like my mother. I'm never satisfied, as Prince would say. Maybe I'm hard to please when it comes to political candidates. And I don't know, maybe Vivek Ramaswamy was actually a really good, prospect for the president of the United States, and perhaps Donald Trump is too. We're kind of stuck with the options being between Trump and Biden. And do I wish Trump was more conservative? Yes. Do I wish he was an actual Christian? Yes. Do I wish he actually understood the Constitution? Yes. Do I wish that he understood that it's best to roll back government expansion as opposed to feeding it all the more. Yes. I mean, he is, after all, the president who passed uh, the largest omnibus bill in presidential history prior to Biden. Um, yeah, he was the one who initiated Operation Warp Speed. He was the one who, after Biden took office, and you had the presidential or not the presidential, you had the congressional midterms, and you had a lot of Republicans who lost. He was the one who took to Truth Social and said that, oh, we lost these elections because of the evangelicals. It's the Christians' fault because they're too radical on the abortion issue. Some of y'all don't want to remember that, but that was Trump, right? Am I going to vote for him in November? Yes. Do I hope that he performs well in tonight's debate, speaking to substantive issues? Yes, I do. But there's no delusions, as far as I'm concerned, that he is the savior of America or that he is this conservative, like beacon of conservatism. I don't think that for a second. But I do believe that he's better than Joseph Robinette Biden. That's for sure. So let's see. We have a few minutes until the debate starts. Let's see if where's Crystal? Where's Crystal and Blanche? Where y'all at? So okay, so Trump is Israel first, says Aaron. I'm not sure what that means. What does that mean? Help me out. What does Trump is Israel first mean? Let's see. I appreciate your consistency, says Remnant 88. Thank you. Really appreciate it. We got Susie Q in here. Glad to see you too, Jay Bunny 102. Looks like she's interacting with some folks in the comment section. We got one here from Miss Ree J07. She says, honestly, Chad, I'm just asking God for discernment to listen twice and speak once. I do like Trump, but at the end of the day, he's still a man. You're absolutely right. And that's really what it boils down to. Again, I'm never satisfied by any of these political candidates. And, as someone who is opinionated and is self-aware, I understand that the critiques I have aren't going to be the critiques that are shared by the general public in mass. I understand that I have this kind of proclivity to critique things. And I can understand, and I see for a lot of people how that can be insufferable or it can come off as too much. I understand that. I'm self-aware enough to know that about myself. But when it comes to people with my kind of character trait, or someone like an anomaly who I would say has a similar character trait as I do, to see certain things in society and critique those things, or shed light on things. I think that people like us are needed. People like us are needed in order to put things into perspective, for one, but also to ask yourself the question of, am I being fooled or tricked by the propaganda of this thing? Because propaganda is all around us. And I think that's really what it is I use my platform. Anomaly uses his platform. Blanche uses his platform. Keisha, like, we use our platforms to expose propaganda and the trickery behind mass marketing and the political space and the cultural space, such and so forth. And so just because propaganda is all around us, just because there are nefarious people who are at work trying to shape and engineer public opinion to skew it toward a detrimental end, even though that's the case, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to wrap tinfoil around your head and never go outside and never talk on the phone, or whatever the case may be. You still have to live your life, and so I can't speak for Anomaly or Blanche or any of the others that I mentioned, but speaking for myself, my advice is to, live your life, still vote for who you're going to vote for. Hopefully they're conservative candidates. Even beyond that, hopefully they're Christian candidates. Because I'd vote for a Christian over a self-proclaimed conservative, because these days that don't really mean anything to call yourself a conservative. But I would vote for someone who I can tell by their fruit is a Christian over Trump or any of these guys any day. But since we don't have that guy, I'm left to vote for Trump. And I'm just being real with you. I'm not going to get up here and wear a MAGA hat and shuck and jive. I shouldn't say it. I shouldn't say that. Say it that way, because that comes off as demeaning to well-meaning people who do wear the MAGA hat. But what I'm trying to say, I can make my point without trying to besmirch or demean people. So I'm not going to get up here and be all trumped out and say, y'all need to go vote for him. He's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like, no, you'll never see me say that. I want to be honest with you and say, I don't really care for Trump all that much, but I'm still going to vote for him because he's better than Joseph Robinette Biden. So thank you for your comment, Miss Ree. Really appreciate you. And thank you for being a member. Let's see if we have any other comments. Aaron says, conservative equals what we used to call classic liberal. That's an interesting take. I don't know if I agree with that entirely, but that's an interesting take. Stimulated students, I wouldn't vote for a Hindu. I'll tell you that. I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. I do agree with, what's her name? What's that lady's name? I forget her name. But you're talking about the lady who Vivek Ramaswamy interviewed. What's her name? It's on the tip of my tongue. Ann Coulter. Yeah, I do agree with Ann Coulter on that. Deontay Blade Ford, I find myself oscillating. I went to public school. You can't be throwing big words like that at me. I find myself oscillating back and forth between these two schools of thought. What schools of thought might that be, Mr. Deontay Blade Ford? I guess I didn't catch that comment. Let's see here. Mrs. Tiffy, great work you're doing, Chad. Hope to see you on podcasts like PBD one day. So many more can hear the truth. May God continue to bless and increase every good thing that concerns you. The reason why I'm reading so like I have dyslexia is because this is an old prescription and I can't find my recent prescription anywhere. One of the kids probably ran off with it somewhere. Looks like we got a super chat from, oh, really? Black folks learn the hard way with illegals. But did they, though? I don't know that they learned. Like, here's the thing about Black culture. Black culture is not hardwired. And when I say hardwired, I mean by cultural development and cultural indoctrination. The hardwiring of Black culture does not equip its adherents to learn lessons. I'm going to repeat that. The hardwiring of Black culture, that is the teaching of Black culture from a parent to a child. And not only from a parent to a child, but also what you see on television as far as Black culture is concerned, what you hear in music as far as Black culture is concerned, what you see at the predominantly Black schools, your predominantly Black public schools, just the kind of ethos and the mores and the pathos, I would say, of Black culture is such to where it does not equip its adherents to learn lessons. And so what tends to happen is Black culture and its adherents are often pulling for, vying for, advocating for, marching for, yelling and screaming for policies and regulations and laws that will result in their own detriment. And rather than learning their lesson after having been given the rough end of the stick, that is the making of their own doing, rather than licking their wounds and learning their lesson, as it were, they go and double down and vote for the same people, advocate for the same policies, participate in the same marching and protesting that will bring about even more detrimental effects. So I don't think Black culture is a culture that has a kind of built-in mechanism wherein its adherents are learning their lessons. That's just me. Someone might have a different opinion, but that's where I stand on that. Do we really know what MAGA means? Apparently it means make America great again, but I think that depends on who you ask. Let's see here. We got any more comments? Love your work, Chad. Thanks for the effort. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for the contribution. Oh, really? Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate that. Mr. Rory says, how many people do you know that has excelled in 3 different disciplines, best and was the best of the in all 3? Why can't I read tonight? And don't forget, we are electing politician, not a pastor. I wish you would write that better. I don't understand what you're saying. I don't know if it's I'm slow or what you said was not legible or intelligible. Let's see. Hey Chad, would you be interested in mentoring me? Shoot me a DM. I'm curious to know what you mean by that. But shoot me a DM or email. You can find me at chad@malonepictures.com. I'm always interested in networking and connecting with folks. Ms. Reed, I'm glad for the debate, but this is a distraction, and the West is getting ready for the real. Thank you for your slogan, getting you t-shirt today, getting your t-shirt today. Thank you. Distraction from what, though? What do you think the debate is a distraction from? Curious to know that. Curious to know what you mean by that. Oscillating means alternating. Yeah, I know. I know what the word means. I just it's not. I know what the word means. I just didn't. It's not one of those words you see in print often these days. So it kind of caught me off guard. Let's see here. Oh, really? Says we're not voting for a preacher, but a presentation. Flawed he is, but better than Biden. That's an interesting. That's an interesting thing that people say. Oh, we're not voting for a pastor. We're voting for president. That's a very interesting thing to say to me, because it's like, obviously, I mean, does that really need to be said? Obviously, we're not voting for a preacher. We're voting for a president. But at the end of the day, I'm going to stand by what I said. I would rather have a president who believes in God, who believes in the Holy Scriptures, and understands that God is a God of common grace, which means that you understand that there are people who are living in the citizenry who are atheists, who are Muslim, who are Hindu, who are Christian. Like, you understand that. So you practice common grace in the same way that the Lord our God practices common grace. The Bible says he allows the rain to fall on the just as well as the unjust, and the sun to shine on the wicked as well as the righteous. And so we understand that God is a God of common grace. But why is it that when I say I'd rather have a pastor who knows and recognizes the Lord as God, or the God, God is the Lord? Why is it that, oh, we're not voting for preacher, we're voting for president? It's like, did you not hear me say that I'm still voting for Trump? Did you not hear me say that I believe Trump is a better option than Joseph Robinette Biden? I already said that. I already qualified that. So at least allow me the grace to then say who I'd rather have. I'm not an idiot. I already know we're not voting for a preacher. We're voting for president. I know this. Good grief. Let's see here. We're okay. So we got 10 minutes to the debate. So I'm going to be streaming the debate from C-SPAN, because at least the people over at C-SPAN act like they have some sense. MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, not so much. Let's see. Paul says, Chad, Trump says he believes in God, and so does Biden, except Biden is truly satanic. I honestly don't like repeating myself. I know I do it a lot, and that's a weird thing that I need to overcome, because I'm the kind of person who says something and don't feel like I did a good enough job explaining it, and so I'll say it again. And so I'm always in my head as far as that's concerned, because I don't. One of the things that I hate is just being misunderstood and not being clear. But I could have sworn that I said that in this live. I could have sworn that I said earlier that I'd rather look at the fruit of the individual to determine whether or not they're genuinely a Christian. I could have sworn I said that. So it doesn't quite matter what Biden says about himself being a Christian, nor does it matter what Trump says about himself being a Christian. I believe that neither one of them are Christians. I would still rather vote for Trump over Biden. But hear me, I don't have any kind of delusions over whether or not Trump or Biden are Christians. None of them demonstrate that they are. None of them show the fruit of being born again. Jesus said, you'll know them by their fruit. None of them demonstrate that, right? So I don't know. Is it me? Like, what am I getting wrong here? I am going to vote for Trump in November. I don't believe Trump is a Christian. If it were an option between a Christian and Trump, I would choose a genuine Christian. If it were an option between a Christian and Biden, I would choose a genuine Christian. That's theoretical. That's in a world that doesn't exist. In this world, we got Trump, we got Biden. I'm picking Trump. I don't know how else to say that. I don't know how else to say that. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into what you all are saying tonight. Let's see. Am I tripping? No. Nicole says no. She said you did say that. Okay, I could have sworn I said that. Okay, so let's see where we are in the debate. I know, Chad. I know Trump isn't a Christian, brother. But when did America have a true, authentic Christian president? Okay. So let's see here. Let's see here. Share screen. Boom.
State of the Union address and other events has really shown up in big moments. And I know the Biden campaign is hoping for that tonight to say, look, he's.
Let me know if y'all can hear that or not.
Back. He shuffles a bit. He looks old because, 81's old. But mentally, he's there. He's the guy for the job. And Trump is obviously going to try to undermine that.
Let me know in the chat whether you guys could hear this
of the worst moment
or not.
For their opponent possible, and say, see,
somebody said it's low.
It's about. And there's going to be a moment where Joe Biden looks old.
So it's not about policy. It sounds personality. And are those two issues so intertwined?
Is that better? Let me know
people by and large
how
don't vote on policy.
the
we like to think
volume of the clip
but none
is
of us
compared
carries
to my volume.
In their head balancing 3 points.
Are we about balance? Is it higher than I am? Is it lower than I am?
And divide by 4 or something like that. Most of us are Democrats or Republicans, and even independents tend to be really reliably partisans. I think what we're looking for, though, is my guy really up to the task. You've got Trump has been picking up points lately. One of the Democrats' arguments is there's a bit of Trump amnesia. And so what the Biden campaign wants to do is remind voters, hey, he sounds a little wacky. So those new numbers will then fade back. And again, it's not on the policy, right? If presidents ruled on what Americans wanted as public policy, we'd have a we'd have a wall along the southern border, and we'd have a lot of gun.
What's up, Blanche?
What's up? I thought it was 9 o'clock.
It is at 9 o'clock, but I was doing a little buffering, doing a little laying the groundwork, as it were.
Okay.
They're getting on me in the comment section, Blanche.
Why?
Because I made a comment earlier about What did I say? I'm having to. Maybe I'm losing my mind. Maybe I'm losing it. But I made a comment earlier about how I prefer a president who knows the Lord, who is a Christian, and demonstrates that they are a Christian by exhibiting fruit of the Holy Spirit. I could have sworn I said that. And then I was I was told that, Chad, we're supposed to be voting for the president of the United States, not a preacher of the United States. But I said in another place that I am going to vote for Trump this come November over Joseph Robinette Biden. My decision is made. I voted for him in the last election and the election before that. But if there was a worthy candidate in the primaries who was a Christian and not some fake fraudulent politician, I would have chosen that person over Donald Trump. Am I wrong, and why?
No, you're not wrong, man. You said you prefer, right?
Yeah.
So your preference is a God-fearing president. I mean, that's his preference. I mean, I don't. It's crazy. Listen, y'all.
But then O'Reilly asked me, was it O'Reilly or Paul? I can't remember. Chad, when have we ever had a real Christian president? I couldn't even answer that question because that conversation is not worth having. I will say this. I think that the reason why we're in the state that we're in is because we've never had a real Christian president.
I'll go with that.
So anyway, what are you looking for in tonight's debate?
I just think it'd be entertainment. I just think it's going to be entertaining. Now, my predicted winner is, Donald J. Trump, but I feel like it's just going to be entertaining. I know Biden will be on his best medication, or they'll just have him, or they'll have him, have somebody in a suit debating.
Okay, I think we're getting started, so I'm going to go ahead and play it.
Okay.
A look back at the 2020 presidential debate, the first one that took.
Nah, that's not it. Okay, I misspoke. It starts in 2 minutes. Go ahead though.
No, I mean, I just think it'll be, I'm really curious to see how Joe Biden's going to do. Actually, I pretty much know how Trump's going to do. I just want to see how Joe Biden, if it's going to be, clone Joe Biden. Is it going to be medicated Joe Biden? Is it going to be alien Joe Biden? Like, which Joe Biden are we going to get? We're going to get robot Joe Biden. There's about 4 of them floating around. Robot, alien, robot, alien, medicated.
Talking to dead people.
Yeah,
Do you think he wears the pins?
I think he wears a version of them. Yeah. I think he wears lined white briefs. He strikes me as a brief guy for some reason. I don't know. I feel like he wears briefs.
Yeah, I feel like he does too. Hold on real quick, y'all. I'm going to call. Hello? All right. Yeah, I feel like he does too. But does that matter though?
No, I mean, I don't mind. Yeah, it matters.
I think it does matter. I think it does matter.
The president should be able to control his bowel movements, man. How can I trust you with the button? I can't trust you with the button if you gonna, leak all over yourself.
What would you say to the people who say, and I have heard this analogy before, that FDR was in a wheelchair. So what's the difference?
I mean, I'll say I prefer he walked too. I mean, I'm not biased. I'm not biased. I mean, I prefer the president be able to run 100 meters. I don't listen. I'm for presidents that got use of all their limbs and they can go to the bathroom on their own. That's what I'm in favor of. Functioning president. So whether
it's not too much to ask.
No,
it's not too much to ask.
You can stand up on your own and use the bathroom on your own.
Just moments, the current U.S. president will debate the former U.S. president as their party's presumptive nominees, a first in American history. We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world to our studios in Atlanta. This is the CNN presidential debate.
This debate is being produced by CNN and is coming to you live on CNN, CNN International, CNN.com, CNN Max, and CNN Espanol. This is a pivotal moment between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in their rematch for the nation's highest office. Each will make his case to the American people with just over 4 months until Election Day. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of State of the Union.
I'm Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN's The Lead and co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates tonight. Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determined their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Folks, how are you? Great to be here. Thank you.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out a position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world, he's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that we found ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down and then they bounced back. And he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing. And they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt. Well, so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people, they cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But You have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things, you got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided, supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have, everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA gets elected?
Your microphone. Settings, audio.
Sign that bill, I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue. Issue of immigration and border security, President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. Let's leave it. All he had to do is leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere, all over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating, he's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed three people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the two greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these three incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all. And he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the He is the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved, choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people.
Break. Go to break, y'all. Go to break.
Come in.
President
President
Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about.
You think he has an earpiece in?
That died. I went to the World
He got a
War
whole
II
head.
cemetery. World War I cemetery to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
Oh,
President Trump.
Whoa.
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines.
Go ahead.
He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are
Biden looks
made
like
up,
he's about to cry.
just like the new thing with the 16 economists.
He looks like
it's the same thing. 51 intelligence
like one of the
agents
characters
said
from Whoville.
that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son Hunter.
He is
It
confused.
wasn't Russia disinformation.
Pop-Pop.
He made
Get
up the
Pop-Pop.
suckers and losers, so he
He
should
is
apologize to me
confused.
right now.
That's right.
Four-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right. Thank you so much.
Topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, that knew that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now.
I'm trying to bring it up to the present moment.
You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost, but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
Truth. Where is the lie?
My whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops.
Brain damage.
Brain damage? You?
He was president.
You.
When they attacked, he said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did.
He didn't say that.
Putin encouraged him, do whatever you want. And he went in. Listen to what he said.
Biden just lying, man. He got
to
come on, man. You can't just
part of the old Soviet Union.
He been watching MSNBC.
Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
as
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th.
I believe
have that war
it.
settled.
It's
People
easy.
being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
You know,
You got to squash beefs. You got to
the
squash
fact
beefs
is
as
that
a
Putin is war
leader.
criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people, and he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? You think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way, all that money we give Ukraine and from weapons we make here in the United States, we give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
He didn't say walk away.
Moving
He
on
said
to the Middle
squash
East.
the
In October,
trauma.
Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far
Blanch,
Hamas
don't make
has
these
not
people
released
mad.
the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in
Don't make these
Gaza.
people mad.
So
on
what
Israel.
additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened in Israel? We're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of
Look at
support for
Trump.
Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're two different things.
What is
Hamas
Biden talking
cannot
about?
be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for what using certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any, they were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting you got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
He said he's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. You see what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about.
What do you
And by the way, I got 50
up,
other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation is a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up,
What classifies as support?
Independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this. I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time?
He said no.
They said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next month.
Period.
But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated count.
Yeah, he framed that.
As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about.
Don't
where he
back
goes after
down,
his political
Trump.
opponent because
Don't
he
back
can't beat
down.
him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds
God,
left.
I
My
don't like the
question
way he
was,
is
what
to
do you
that
say
question.
to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically.
That's what he
And
said.
Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor in writing turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar.
Yep.
She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one.
Yes, he
I
did.
sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and
They are
patrons
patriots.
of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And
No, they should not.
be the ones
What
who
court was
are being
this?
held
What-
accountable.
Exactly.
And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President
Oh,
Biden.
he never
President
said.
Trump?
This man is lying.
He
Now
lied.
to some people that are so
Lying through his
innocent,
false teeth.
you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Lying
What you have
through
done,
his
how you've
false
destroyed the lives of so many people when they ripped
Somebody
down
said
Portland, when
translate
they
that.
ripped down many other cities. You go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing, the Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and
Good.
Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right.
Right.
We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that.
Yeah.
If a
Yeah,
Republican
they
did
should.
that, they'd go to
Thank you,
jail.
President Trump.
Yes,
President
that's
Biden, I
so
want to give you
true.
a minute.
Don't cut him off
The only
now.
person at this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now.
Oh, here
The
we
fact of the
go.
matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there
Convicted
was
felon.
no
That's what
effort
we're
on
talking
his
about.
part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues.
Ooh.
The idea that those
Turn
people are patriots.
Ooh, the death.
Come on. When I asked
They
him
didn't
those
burn
first
down
two
police
debates
stations.
the debates we had first time
What
around,
statues were turned
I
over?
said, will you denounce the Proud
Zero.
Boys?
I don't recall
He
that.
said, no, I'll tell them to
By
stand by.
Republicans.
The idea he's refusing to,
I can tell you the
will you
statues that
denounce
were
these
knocked down
guys?
by
You
Democrats.
denounce the people we're talking about now? You denounce the people who attacked that Capitol?
Nope.
What are you going to do?
Don't denounce them.
I'm
Don't
going
do
to
it.
give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question.
Stand
I
back and
have.
stand by, J6ers.
After a
We
jury
got you.
convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again because right now it's a failing nation. my retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted.
Wow.
Going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President
Julia
Biden, you have
Assange
said,
actually
coming
said
right to you,
that.
sir.
He said WikiLeaks
Well, you want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give
if
you a minute to
Trump
respond.
had something
The
wrong.
idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one.
So is the laptop,
The
sir.
idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong.
He didn't say he
Simply
would.
wrong.
You
No
be
president's
lying.
ever
He didn't
spoken
say
like
that.
before.
He didn't say that.
No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you
they
talking
just
about?
they just tacking
Are
it
you making
on.
the morals of an alley
They
cat?
just first she had the newborn
I didn't
baby,
have
then
sex
she
with a
had
porn
now she
star,
pregnant.
number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam, and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald
ever
Trump
wanna
and his
answer-
MAGA Republicans
He ain't
are
answered the way.
determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around.
Oh, I bet you know. I thought he didn't know anything about the
case. He has
case.
to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? You ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again.
Sir, you've been
Until
running.
I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him, they said, what do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say,
this lie is still working.
carrying torches,
It's still
singing
working.
the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas, were fine people. This is a guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are.
Charlottesville
Good
lie
things
got
Hitler's
eternal
done,
life.
that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American
It's
democracy.
never gonna die.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance.
Exactly. He's been
not
running
equipped to be
since he was
president.
like
You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every anchor every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden?
And debunked. It happened.
No,
All
it
you have to do
didn't.
is listen to what was said at the time.
We have.
The idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought there were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, the reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
They're weak.
Thank you, President Biden.
Just
We're
like
gonna be
you,
right
sir.
back
But
with
they're
more
finna
from the
drop you too.
CNN presidential debate.
No. Oh my God, y'all.
The Democrats about to drop Joe too. Joe, you about to get dropped too.
They just got to get Joe past this just closer to November, and they about to drop him.
Listen, I ain't gonna lie, y'all. I got it right now. I got 27-0 Trump.
20, you taking tallies?
Listen, I ain't have Biden win one round.
Y'all, like, why is he lying? I mean, and it's so funny because if we didn't have internet, then all we would be going off of is what he's saying.
Right.
And then he even says, like, he double downs and says, go watch it. We've watched it, sir.
We saw it in real time. We did.
We've seen the evidence. But the thing is, I mean, I think most people have not, though. Most people are just kind of going off of what they're told.
At
do y'all think so or what?
At this point, if you haven't seen it, then you're willfully ignorant. You are honestly negligent, because how do you not? And I think Trump even brought up that he said, why would I, in front of generals, in front of like military people, call them losers? Like, why would I? Who would do that? Ask your good sense why you would do that. Right.
Now, there were a couple of things that stuck out to me in the debate. Let me just start by one of the last items, which, Jake Tapper, he thinks he's slick. A lot of these journalists and the press think they're slick because they throw around this word democracy. And unfortunately, a lot of Americans are unwitting. A lot of Americans believe that we live in a democracy, and they believe that democracy needs to be protected. And so he asked Joe Biden about our democracy and saving our democracy. And Joe Biden says, and I quote, "This guy," referring to Trump, "has no sense of American democracy." And in my opinion, that was Trump's opportunity to educate these good American people of the fact that we don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic.
Right.
But he completely just gave up that opportunity and he moved on to something else. And so I think that little moment, that little interaction is kind of par for the course as far as America is concerned over the past 100 years, where you have one side that keeps beating it into the heads of the American mind that we live in a democracy, we live in a democracy, we live in a democracy. And on the other side, the so-called conservative side, there's no response, there's no genuine pushback on the public stage. What were y'all's thoughts on that? Does it matter, or do you think that, do you agree with me that Trump missed an opportunity there?
Crystal?
Go. Oh, I was going to let you have the floor because I already talked.
Oh, I mean, I was going to say you missed an opportunity because, we're in the information age. And as soon as Trump says America is a constitutional republic, you have a whole bunch of folks going to Google. So I think,
right,
just for like the generation that we're in, if he even makes it a debate, democracy versus constitutional republic, it makes people have the debate when the debate is over. You know what I mean? So yeah, he missed an opportunity there. He missed a huge one because that could have actually went viral.
Yeah.
With all the quote unquote woke and people that, all the woke folks.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if he would have said, actually, we don't live in, Jake and or actually Jake Tapper and
Dana is
Joe
her
Biden.
doc-
I forgot our president's name. Actually, Jake Tapper and Joe Biden, we don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. Yeah, that would have been a huge viral moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we back already?
Yeah. They're not answering the questions the way they need us, y'all.
Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say
Oh,
to Black
God, here we
voters
go.
who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that Black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for childcare costs. We got to make sure because when you provide those childcare protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any Black family first-time home buyer should get a $10,000 tax credit.
Sir, we can't buy. They can't buy a house.
Can't
afford the house.
I made sure
sir.
that we're in a situation where all those Black families and those Black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning. That if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with
Hopefully Trump doesn't fall for this race
if they
card.
paid their bills
Right.
for
Think he
10
will?
years.
Oh yeah, he will.
Yeah,
He always falls in the mode with the Black.
And the greatest
And they're gonna
president
do a
for the
whole lot
African American.
for Black families.
Since
Thank you,
Abraham
President
Lincoln.
Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He
Period.
spun the inflation.
That's true.
And he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody.
It's killing
It's
everybody.
killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the Black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking Black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking Black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you.
I don't
President
want
Biden.
a Black job, y'all.
It
That
was
just don't sound
What
like
is a
it's
Black
When I
job?
became president, you know why? The economy
A
was
Black
flat.
job is
Something
so
has to be
bad.
Black.
Oh my
50%
goodness.
unemployment.
I don't
He
want a Black
decimated the
job.
economy. Absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of
Y'all know
millions
that's
of
going
jobs
on a
for
clip
individuals who are
everywhere.
in all
Black
communities,
job.
including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered. The ACA has increased. I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for the health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again. And they're going to try again if they win. We find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on.
You
But
figure if you just
inflation,
say it and
he
don't
caused
quit,
it
like
by his
just say it.
tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you.
He
Another
put more
persistent
police
challenge
on the
is the
streets.
climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels.
They want to control.
Former President Trump, you've vowed
weather.
to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said
I
about
knew it.
the police,
Go ahead.
how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state
Support
is supporting Donald J. Trump.
Yep.
Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that.
Don't
Super
do it,
predators was
Trump.
his name. And he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense.
They
at
were
it,
super
and now
predators.
They see it
What are
happening.
we talking about?
But when
They
they see
still are.
what I did for criminal justice reform
They
and for the
super duper
historically
predators now.
black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all
Y'all, he
funded,
got to
and
though.
the
Stop, Trump.
opportunity
Stop it.
zones with
Lay off
Tim,
my
as you know, Tim
dude.
Scott
Y'all
was
know I'm
incredible. He
MAGA.
did a great job. Great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts
No,
Tell
ever in
them,
the
Trump.
country.
it wasn't.
Opportunity
It
zones.
was not.
And the biggest beneficiary
Wasting the
are
taxpayers'
blacks.
money
And
on the
that's
blacks.
why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population
They make you
because he's done
bend,
a
man.
horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Climate
There's
change.
I
nothing
want
to take.
absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air. And we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever. And we did.
Crazy.
We were using all
Y'all,
forms
I
of
love
energy,
him. I
all
can't
forms,
help
everything.
it. I
And
love
yet,
that man.
during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever.
We had
And my top
H2O.
environmental people
We had
gave me
air.
that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. In history, we find ourselves.
You
and by
should
the way,
not be
black
proud of
colleges.
that.
I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges.
They're just giving
because
all
they
the way,
don't
all
have
the money away to the
They don't have
blacks.
the kind of
The blacks
contributors
make
that
them
they have.
bend.
And they still
man.
complaining.
Bill
The
I
Gates
black
know that's
people
what
Corporation
said.
like
They gave them
any black student
Juneteenth and they
district
still
in
not
college
free.
doing
You
any
heard them
white
gave
student
them
can do.
Freedom Day.
They just have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5
Dummy, you
degrees
fell for that?
Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential
Paris
threat to
thanks
humanity
you.
is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing,
Thank
and
you.
India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States.
Thank you.
And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors.
And the HBCUs,
I took care of the
sir.
seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
What?
I just wish he wouldn't say that type of stuff because they
The
clip
idea
it
is that
and
we,
you know.
in fact,
God,
we
Trump.
were the only ones
the
of
biggest heart on
consequence.
the stage.
We're not.
That's
we're
not
not
conservative
members
at all.
of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We've not able to,
Conservatives
the
have
United States
heart.
can't get us
We just not
under control.
stupid.
One of the
Like I
largest
No, I'm
polluters in
saying,
the world.
like,
Number one.
I
We're
welcome
making
the end of
significant
Social
progress.
Security and
By
Medicare.
2035, we will have cut pollution in half.
Well, whether
We
we
have
welcome it or
made-
not,
we've made
it's going
significant
away.
progress.
It's coming through
We'll
it.
continue to make progress.
To
We set up
it.
a climate corps where thousands of young people will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're going to we're moving in
How do you know
directions
how
that
to
are
deal
going to
with climate?
significantly
Honestly,
change
like how do you know how to
elements that
deal with the
cause
climate?
pollution.
Like, what
But
kind
the
of course
idea
what are they
that
teaching you?
claims that
How
he
to
has the
get in
biggest
the
heart
shade?
up
Like
there
what
and
are
is
they
really
teaching you how to
concerned
do?
about
Drink water? How you dealing with the climate?
pollution and
This is the
about
dumbest thing I've
climate.
heard in my
I've
life.
not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many
CNN is
older
really
Americans,
trying.
Social
They're
Security
really
provides a
trying.
critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to
Somebody
take to
said they
keep
want us to
Social
be
Security
Storm from
solvent?
X-Men.
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now,
Oh,
everybody
God.
making $270,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I've been proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%.
That's
So
just
no
not
one after,
true.
I would not
That's
raise
not
the cost
true.
of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent?
Let
or
him
just
freestyle.
was
Go ahead,
that one
freestyle,
enough?
Joe.
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the biggest thing will do it if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare both times. And that's what. And if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea
It's going
that
away.
we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation where I talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants, another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you,
So they
President
can
Biden.
get them good refund
So
checks.
I've dealt with politicians
You know the
all my
Black.
life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen that he can look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing. And it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden?
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world, the reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now, all of a sudden, he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody, number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up. Go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care, he did virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the 2 of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff, he will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that were imported. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he is not raised. He somehow helped the middle class. Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
were at the
President Biden.
highest. You lost
Thank you,
160
President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot. And we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage, we always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases. We paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call that to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us, all of our allies, and those who he cuddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, he sends love letters to, and Putin, et cetera. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, anyway, just take a look at what he says he is and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. That he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn
Let's not act like children.
to a specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, And also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say is one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this with, he's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President
president.
Trump, the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate, live from Georgia.
C-SPAN Now is a free mobile app featuring your unfiltered view of what's happening in Washington. Live.
I had tears in my eyes, yo. I was crying.
What was that?
I had to go get a tissue. I was crying.
I told you it's gonna be entertaining, man. I told you, entertainment.
So, like, I mean, they brought up the whole black thing in the opening question of the second half of the second half of the debate. Are black issues still really that important in American politics?
No,
not at all. And none of them care about it. I mean, like, let's just keep it
Black
real. But you have to. They make you go down this path, y'all. Of the blacks, the black jobs. And I wish we had, and unfortunately, it's just the culture in white America right now. It's like they're all doing it. They're all, I mean, I can't even talk to somebody at work that does it. I don't care if you're conservative or liberal or Republican or Democrat. They all try to pander to me and tell me about opportunities. And like, white people, get it together.
I like the white folks that talk like, hold your own weight.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, Trump, or not Trump, Blanche, how do you think Trump performed with the race questions?
Honestly, he probably could have just really went rogue and been like, listen, man. I don't think he did
Not what he could have done. What, like, as far as what he gave us, how would you rate it?
I'd probably give it a C, maybe like a C plus. I don't know. It seemed like to me he wasn't really concerned with it, honestly. In my opinion, he wasn't really concerned because to me it was an opportunity. He could have went back to his own track record with unemployment, all that stuff. He could have went like what he did when he was, what happened when he was in office. He mentioned the economy, but I did like the fact that he talked about one thing that was actually true is that the immigration does affect black employment when they've done studies. And so I'm glad he did say that. So I give him an A for pointing that out. But I mean, all the rest of it wasn't really, I don't know.
But what does the president have to do with black employment?
Black jobs, Chad.
I'm gonna say this.
What is a black job, first and foremost? But like,
I'm gonna say
for
this.
me, like, I can honestly say that my starting my business had nothing to do with who's the president of the United States. Like, what is this line or this connection that people think exists between the president and jobs?
Well,
I mean, I know that, like, large corporations determine whether or not they will hire masses of people based upon what the future of the economy looks like. I know that's true of large corporations, but what percentage of jobs in America are provided by large corporations compared to like mom and pops and small businesses and things of this nature?
Well, the small businesses accept some of the same, freedoms and like tax cuts that large corporations do. I think business is good for everybody. Where I think the president is, they can't articulate is that black people have very low skills, and a lot of these companies hire low skilled workers to feed their family.
Right. All right, we'll continue the conversation after this last piece.
Was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along. It's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Not interested.
No.
God, it was really bad. Those closing arguments were horrible.
You said, Crystal, that you wish Trump wouldn't have done the debate. Why is that?
Yeah, I just don't think that at this juncture, like he's not able to articulate in a way that's more modern that'll help people to kind of understand. I think like a lot of people in his demographic, they know what to do, they know how to do it. But when you're talking to the everyday American, he spent a lot of time talking about money. Most Americans don't even understand money. Unfortunately, the culture has attacked people for having money. They tell you poverty is piety, like, that sort of thing. And so when Trump is talking, they don't quite understand it. They don't understand. Everybody wants money, but they don't understand it or how to get it. And so I just looked at it through a lens of the people that I know, the everyday people that I know, and they will not read his questions, the answers to his questions in a positive light. They just won't.
Before you go, Blanche, just wanted to read some of the supers. Let's see here. got one from Oh Really. Says all I was saying, and Oh Really is responding to some of my opening comments before the debate started. He says all I was saying was let's see, what was the last Christian president, or who was the last Christian president? Did we ever really have one? And my response to that is, you know, there are some presidents who I like for different reasons. When it comes to my own understanding of our history. However, I stand by what I said earlier whenever Blanch came on, which is you know, perhaps the reason why we're in the fix that we're in as a country is because we never had a president that had a fidelity to the scriptures, that was a genuine Christian. Perhaps that's the reason we're in this situation that we're in. And it's just peculiar to me that whenever I say that I prefer a president who is a fundamentalist Christian, who you can tell they are a Christian by the fruit of their spirit. It's interesting to me that the response that I get from some of you is, oh, we're trying to elect the next president, not the next preacher. And it's like, okay, we have 40 some odd presidents that has, along with Congress and with the Senate, most of whom were not Christians, who have so obliterated this country, so destroyed this country. And what, you think that by putting some populace in office is going to fix everything that was destroyed up until this point? Help me understand that logic. No, Chad, we don't need a preacher in office. We need another president in office. That's in the same vein as all 40 some odd, what is it, 46 presidents that we've had in the past. Or, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. It's just peculiar to me that you all haven't gotten it through your head that insanity is trying the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different outcome. Perhaps it's high time that we elect someone who is a genuine Bible-believing radical Christian. That's what I say. Let's see. Thank you, Miss Ree. Looks like she gifted 5 people with some memberships, so I appreciate that.
Oh, that's sweet.
We got one from T King Secret Services. Need to check on Biden's diaper. He looked constipated the whole time. Let's see. Willie Doc super sticker. Thank you. And then Jesus Loves You super sticker. Thank you. So, I mean, you know, piggybacking off of what you just said, I don't know why I'm sweating so much in the studio, but piggybacking off of what you said, Crystal, about, you know, Trump not being able to speak in such a way that resonates with the populace. While I agree with you in part, I think he did a far better job than I would have done. In that scenario. Because like listening to all of those questions that were being put to the candidates, I would have answered those questions in all honesty. I would have given my own, you know, Chad-esque answers, and those answers would not have resonated with the audience at all.
I agree.
When it comes to abortion, when it comes to the blacks, when it comes to Social Security, like they would not like what I have had this, like what I would have had to say. People tell me all the time, Chad, you should run for office. And it's like I'm realistic enough to know that I wouldn't stand a chance in a political environment because I'm too honest. And the fact is, in order to be a successful politician, you have to lie to people and tell them what they want to hear, because most people just want to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Even though that's not the government's job, most people want somebody else to take care of them. They want someone else to blame. And as a politician, you have to be venomous enough to do that. And that's just not me. What say you, Blanch?
Well, I'm gonna do like Trump. Well, first, let me go back to the black. Let me go back to the black question. Can you all see me on the screen?
Yeah, I can see you. I can see you. We can see you. We can see you.
Okay. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. So when they asked the question, basically, how do you keep black people out of prison? To me, these are like set up questions, because black folks going to prison is cultural and social issues the president really can't. I mean, what can the president even do? What could a mayor or governor even do? Like, black folks going to prison is because of behavior. It's not because of who's in office. And then when they asked about unemployment, I agree with Chad that it's not the president's job to make sure that you have a job. That's on you. And so I feel like they're asking these questions that are really questions about socialism. And it almost puts you in a position where if you're anti-socialism, you're almost like you're the bad guy. You're the racist, you're the conservative racist Christian who doesn't believe. So I don't know. The questions just seem like they're like socialist questions, like, what are you going to do for the blacks? But I did like the way Trump was like, it's not just blacks, it's Hispanics. Everybody is suffering in the country. It's not just black people. It's like everybody is feeling the effects of this Biden presidency. Now back to the question about what Chad just said about him. I guess him running for office, if he was to run, and him not. I forgot what the question was.
Well, it wasn't that wasn't the question. I was just making a comment on, because Crystal was saying that she doesn't believe that Trump did that great of a job because some of the answers that he was giving doesn't resonate with the populace, like the electorate as a whole.
Yeah.
And I was saying that if it were me up there, I think Trump did a better job than I would have done in terms of resonating or applying to the most number of people. And that's just something that I personally would not have done. So I don't know. I guess the question underneath all of that is, overall, how do you think Trump did?
Well, let me say this, right? So Trump got extra credit on this test because Biden was in robot mode. So he started the test off with 20 points. He was going to 100. Now they said on Twitter, they were lighting Joe Biden up, which makes sense. And then they said, somebody just told me here, CNN said that Joe Biden should step down. I'm gonna say this, right? I think that, yeah, he did. He did look bad. But listen, I think that, listen, to our standards, Trump didn't meet the standard to our standards, but our standards are not the general public standards. To the general public, he destroyed Biden. Like he destroyed him. So I think that Crystal's expectations are a little bit higher than the average person because she knows more, she wants more. So her bar is already set high for Trump. The average person, literally, if Trump could just get through the debate, he would have won. Like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like he didn't really have to knock anybody's socks off because Biden did it all himself. Biden was mumbling, he wasn't even making sense. He was just rambling, like he basically sounded like he shouldn't be up there. Like he basically sounded like an old man. Somebody mentioned earlier it was elderly abuse. And so if I give Trump a grade, my grade for him, it would probably be like maybe a B- C+. If I gave him a grade. But to the general public, he probably got an A. And I'm going to be honest, because to me, I think he touched on the points that people are concerned about. I think people are concerned about the state of the country. People are concerned about jobs. People are concerned about inflation. People are concerned about, I wish he had said something about the gas prices, you know. But I felt like he got his point across. I mean, to the general public, in my opinion. Could he have done better? Yes. Could Biden have done worse? Probably not. So I think with that, I think that Trump won the debate. He won the fight. I don't know if you can, if that's, he won probably 11 rounds to 1. In my opinion, I don't know.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that assessment. I mean, because that's the thing. It's like, I understand what my standards are. And you make a very good point about, you know, bringing up my standards and Crystal's standards. The fact is, when it comes to where we are as a nation, somebody said in the comment section that, you know, in order to get a Christian president, you have to have a Christian nation. The people have to themselves be Christian. And then they're, you know, that commenter is absolutely right.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, that's why I think the things that I do, the things that you two are doing, the things that, you know, Keisha and Chuck are doing, and people that are Christians, real Christians working in the media space, who are on social media, who are in music and television and academia. This is why our job and our role is so important, is because we can't rely on some politician getting into office in passing legislation, passing laws, forcing people to act like Christians.
Hmm.
The only way that can be done is on a peer-to-peer level. And so the thing is, the hope is that enough people being believers will use their civic responsibility and civic duty in such a way from the ground up to implement standards at the local level and state level, and hopefully eventually the federal level, that are in keeping with some idea of structure and stability and security, and freedom. But what we have right now is you have this thing that they call progress, which isn't really progress at all, which embraces LGBT propaganda and ideology, which embraces downright Satanism, and they're calling that progress. But we are on a road to serfdom. We are on a road to globalism. And unfortunately, the powers that be who are at work shaping public opinion in terms of what progress is, which consists of those things I just mentioned, a lot of your Republican and Democrat politicians are made to acquiesce to those standards, either loosely or directly, directly or indirectly, if that makes sense. And so you'll see people like Trump and other Republican politicians kind of, veer so far from that Overton window, but yet still stay within it so as to not be totally unappealing to the larger society, which unfortunately is being indoctrinated day in and day out through our entertainment system, through our education system, through academia, through journalism, through so on and so forth. It's so hegemonic and penetrative and, pause. It's so inundative and so pervasive, and it's everywhere, this idea of progress, that a lot of people believe it. And if you are someone like myself or someone like Blanche, and you come along and you call yourself running for office, and you're saying the things that we say on Cutting Through the Culture, you're talking about personal responsibility, you're talking about we shouldn't be giving money to HBCUs, and we shouldn't be investing in any kind of so-called opportunity zone nonsense. We shouldn't be, there's no such thing as a black job. If you come along saying something like this, you'll be laughed out of court, because the masses of people, their brains are acclimated to a socialist system, acclimated to a globalist ideology. And the kind of things that we say on Cutting Through the Culture is like a foreign language to most people. And so you have to connect with people on a peer-to-peer level, and hope that will spread before you get anywhere near the political realm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think Trump even he actually said that. He's, when the abortion question comes up, he says, I hear you got to stick to your guns, but you got to win elections. I mean, unfortunately, like you said, we're just not a Christian nation anymore. And in the same token, we're not the best nation anymore. We're not the strongest nation. And I think that those messages are really hard pills for a lot of people to swallow as they sleep nestled in their bed, ignorant of what's going on. And they need to be shaken. They need to be woken up. But unfortunately, they've just been sedated by news anchors and CNN and MSNBC telling them that if anybody tells them the truth, meaning men cannot get pregnant, you should not be sex changing on children, we are not the strongest military anymore, because a lot of men, enrollment is completely down because they don't want to report to a trans admiral. We do not have enough ships. If China were to start a war in the sea, we would not be able to fight. And we would be if you start to tell these people the truth, then you start to look like the bad guy. These are enemies to the truth. And I don't know how, as a politician, you tell them the truth. So you just have to tell them a lie that hopefully is, seriously, you have to. That's why I said, like, even with Trump, like, you have to lie to these people. I mean, the blacks want to hear about the HBCUs, even though we all know. I went to a HBCU. We all know what happens on HBCUs, indoctrination camps. You don't learn a single thing. I came out of that HBCU, so God bless, I had a good time. I learned a lot about myself, but I could not compete with the skills that I had at my HBCU. That is a fact. That is a fact. I had to gain those skills. Like, they don't want to hear that stuff. They don't want to hear that I do tax cuts for the wealthy, because you guys, you blacks and you Hispanics, are low skills. I tell everybody, God bless Walmart. I know you don't agree with that, Chad, but God bless Walmart. I would pay some of the people that Walmart hires, I would pay them not to show up. Literally, I would pay them to don't come, because of the way that they employ these people with very little skills to do menial jobs to at least take care of their family. I guess that's where I kind of differ with you guys. I know you guys are true Bible believers that when a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat. But I kind of look at it like, what are we going to do with these people who have no skills in any, like, what are we going to
let them figure it out? That's on
they
them.
They won't.
Okay, well, so here's the thing. The most character building mechanism in the world is being out on your own with no one else to depend on, and no policy to depend on or anything of that nature. You'll do one of two things. You'll still kill and cheat, or you'll do the honorable thing and make, work from the ground up to make a living. And in doing so, you'll make yourself a better man. Yeah. Now, if you decide to do the former, we have a place for you. It's called jail. That's just, if I had an island and I was king of that island, there won't be no such thing as welfare. There won't be no such thing as handouts. There won't be no such thing as the government having a responsibility to create jobs. None of that. Like, you are on your own. It will be a true meritocratic society. And if you call yourself trying to steal or trying to make a come up in a dishonest way, you'll either be exiled from the island or you're going to prison. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah.
But if you want to live amongst the people, then you had better do so in an honest way. You had better make a living for yourself in an honest way. Whenever you don't have anyone else to depend on, and you don't have any like welfare program or policy that's going to bail you out, you'll find a way to make ends meet. I don't really give my own story on how I used to be homeless and how I used to not have a place to call home. Wow. And it wasn't until having experienced that I realized, man, if I want to make my way in this world, I had better get myself to work. I'd better start using these hands of mine. Like, I can say that from like true like experience. So that's the reason why I don't have any kind of
sympathy,
tolerance, if you will, or sympathy for someone who is lazy, someone who makes excuses. I have no tolerance for it at all, because I've been there and I've done that.
Yeah.
So no, I don't. If you want to be lazy and you are going to be a looter and a leech on society, I don't feel that it should then be the government's responsibility to try to come up for, a place for you. I think we should make a place for you, and that place should be called prison. Genuinely.
Or how about forced labor?
Yeah,
I'm with that. I agree with that. That I agree with. I believe in that. I do.
Well, if you think about it, though, honestly, if we're thinking about it from a productive standpoint, wouldn't it make sense to, if folks just want to free off of society, you actually make them earn it. The Bible talks about charity, feeding the hungry and, clothing the naked. But as far as to me, that's in context with you being on hard times. That's not a perpetual state of you just constantly without food and clothes. No. I think that maybe that people should be forced to work. If you want to be a criminal, you want to be a degenerate, you want to come and take from society, now we're going to make you get a trade and work. And if you don't, then you just going, off with his head.
I agree.
But I would just say that back to, the whole, what Trump said about abortion, to me, what Trump said about abortion was the right answer, and because it should be up to the states. And I say that because that's how the country is set up. That you think about it, if it's up to the state, then you have a right to vote. If y'all don't want abortion to be something, then vote. Guess what? Then y'all need to get out there, start campaigning, and be anti-abortion. Don't just show. If you really are against abortion, folks should be afraid to get an abortion. Like, think about it. If it's all this pushback against abortion, there should be commercials against abortion. There should be billboards everywhere. There should be T-shirts. It should be a whole campaign and movement against abortion, but there isn't.
Yeah.
Now there's a whole movement for abortion, but I don't really see a movement against abortion. All I'm saying is, if it's up to the states, to me that's the fairest thing you can do. If you just abolish abortion completely, if you just say no abortion completely, guess what you're gonna have? It's gonna be chaos. If you say no abortion, then women gonna be literally making examples out of live children. I know what they're gonna do. They're gonna be literally walking in the street, holding a baby crying, and they're gonna make examples. I mean,
I agree.
I mean, we live in a decadent society. You muted, Chad. You muted. Oh, you muted.
I said because I disagree wholeheartedly with that, because it's inconsistent with the Declaration of Independence. It's inconsistent with the Declaration of Independence. We can't claim to be a nation that says that we believe that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and property, or which would later become the pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
Life is being chief among those. And so if we are leaving it to the states to decide, because where people get the whole, leave it to the states to decide, they get that from the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, which says essentially that anything that's not, specifically outlined in this Constitution should be left up to the states and to the people. And so that's where people get this whole notion of, we should just kick it back to the states. Well, we're talking about life. Is it a life or isn't it?
It is a life.
It is a life. And so therefore it's protected by our founding document in our country.
Well,
that life is endowed by the creator. And so to me, saying that we should leave abortion to the states is similar to saying that we should leave. I mean, there is capital murder. That you have types of murder that are outlawed federally, and then of course you have the way that it's sentenced that's differed, that differs from state to state. So I understand that like a state has a say in what degree a given murder is and how they go about prosecuting and sentencing murder. So yes, I guess in a sense, we do have a kind of states' rights situation already when it comes to murder. But I do feel, once again, that like when it comes to murder, there's no state that says, oh, murder is legal. And so I don't think that there should be a distinction between murder and abortion. I think in the same way that literally every state in the union acknowledges and identifies murder, whether it be first degree murder, second degree murder, third degree murder, in the same way that every state recognizes murder of a postpartum individual as murder, we should treat the life in the womb as a life, because that's exactly what it is. It's not something different. It's not an alien. This is a human being we're talking about. And so regardless of what the repercussions and what, the temper tantrum that people throw in the streets, we have to acknowledge it as a human life, because that's exactly what it is.
So
I mean, that might be an extremist view, but it's the one that I take.
No, I mean, it's not extremist. And so again, the reason why I said he gave the best answers is because we don't live in a nation that is Christian. Like, if we live in a nation that's not ran with all these heathens, then what we saying makes sense, because if it was up to me, there would be no abortion.
Me too.
But I'm talking about for the current state that we're in, then now, if you don't give these people a choice, they're gonna, like, I just know it. Listen, if these people weren't decadent, if these people weren't like they were, then I get everything you're saying. I'm just saying the only compromise you can have, other than saying abortion is murder, period, no ifs, ands, or buts, then is to say, okay, y'all vote on it then. I'm saying if we're really against abortion, like we say we are, we're really against quote unquote murder, then guess what? Folks should be going that much more harder to fight against it. Like people shouldn't want to get an abortion. It should be just a headache to go out and get an abortion because you're gonna have all these groups coming down. It's no different. It's no different than somebody doing something to a woman. If they find you did something to a woman, or like in prison, if you were a child molester, if you done art a woman or something like that, when you go to prison, it's no talking. It's they going. So I'm saying all I'm saying, Chad, is I understand what you're saying 100%. And in my world, we don't have abortion. It's not even an option. Like you got to deal with it. You got to get a baby for adoption in my world. But I also know that's not the country though.
I see where you're coming from. I think that when it comes to this whole matter of abortion, I can honestly say, and I think you and Crystal will agree, that a white person would more readily say that I'm against saying the word nigger than I'm against abortion.
I agree 1,000%.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 1,000%. Yeah. And honestly, I do.
And the word, saying the word nigger doesn't really offend anybody in all seriousness, whereas abortion is taking the life of a human being. And the reason for that, the reason I say that, just so y'all don't think I'm just randomly saying something.
No.
Is because we have a society and we have a contingent of social engineers and propagandists who have so shamed this idea of racists and racism that people are genuinely afraid of saying something that would frame them as a racist.
And that's
so they have right.
Oh.
And yeah, and I'm agreeing with him.
Mm-hmm.
So they have carried out this kind of shame campaign to where, a person would rather be caught dead before they, say the word nigger or, do something that can be construed as racist.
Mm-hmm.
And comparatively speaking, a lot of you are pro-life activists, and some of them I know, many of them I know, and I have a great deal of respect for, but they are not good propagandists. They're not good at that kind of marketing and that kind of shaping of public opinion to the extent where people are ashamed to get abortions.
Right.
It's one of those things where like it's just an option. It's reproductive health. And so on the one hand, you have the so-called left who have done a masterful job of making women feel comfortable with getting abortions. Oh, it's just reproductive health. And on the other side of it, you have a lot of so-called pro-lifers who have done an abysmal job basically shaming people against, the notion of getting abortion. And so if the left is really good at like shaming people to not be racist, shaming people to not body shame, shaming people to, not say the wrong thing as it relates to, whatever the case may be, then why aren't those on the so-called right doing the same thing in terms of like shaming people against getting abortion?
Well, I think that's where how do you eat an elephant? I mean, this is so major. Like, so I do believe I'm with you guys. I'm 100% pro-life, and I've had several abortions. I fall into that whole Black culture. Been Black for 40 years. Thank God I'm free. But like they you have to start somewhere, or else, like Blanche said, they were taking clothes hangers and sticking it upside their vagina and pulling the baby. I'm like, you had, and so I think what Trump did with the Supreme Court is, as he stated, gave them a place to start with. Like, okay, so now we throw it back to the states, and then we can chunk it. So like we have Florida starting to do abortion bans, at 6 weeks, and and so after 6 weeks, so you have it there, and slowly getting to the point of where it's completely banned, hopefully, is the goal. But you had to start somewhere, and the left, the left are propaganda. Because they appeal to everything that is decadent, as Blanche would say, and the right, unfortunately, some of them don't even know what they believe, because a lot of the left I mean, a lot of the people that are on the right, even now, like y'all talked about with the crisis of Black Republicans, they just want the left on the right. They don't even know what it is to be a Christian a lot of times. And there's a small amount of people that even quite understand what abortion does to a country. Like forget the family, forget, the woman doesn't want the baby. I mean, the Bible talks about poverty and sickness. We are one of the sickest countries in the entire world. Black folks have more abortions than anybody, and we are the poorest. And you keep wanting these government programs, you want to come, like, would it be that we got back to what the Bible says and stop having abortions, start living a life that's honorable to God, and then some of your problems will be fixed? But they can't hear that right now. They can't hear it. They can't.
So I think what Chad is probably not wrestling with, but I know D. Blade Ford mentioned it, but what I wrestle with is, okay, I realized two things. I realized that conservatives have never really had to defend being conservatives until now. And so they don't really have a conviction about being conservative because it's been a way of life for them. Now that it's being challenged and threatened, they don't really have an offensive attack. They're pretty much been playing defense I've seen since I've been involved in this for the past 4 years. Part of me is like, listen, we got to be radical. We got to be radical in our beliefs, uncompromising, unwavering. But guess what? I can't be in politics then. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that the way I believe in what I know is true is God's word. I can't be a politician because I'm gonna say something that people are not gonna like. So I can't be. So I'd rather be on this side to be able to speak God's word. I couldn't be a politician because I couldn't go up there and just sugarcoat and do all this tap dancing around. I'm gonna say, you're going to hell. Period. Next question. And it just is what it is. Like, I'm not gonna play with y'all. Right. But yeah. So I understand where Chad is coming from. I'm talking about from the realms of politics, though, from the sphere that they're in, the game that they're playing. That's what the rules are. Now, to me, I'm not playing those games. I'm not going to play with these people. I'm going to stay out of it because I've had 3 abortions myself, and I count, the women have 3 abortions. I've had 3 abortions myself, and I didn't even realize how much programming and propaganda and all this stuff until the Holy Spirit tells you, no, this is murder. This is wrong. This is you taking a life. You call, and then there's one scripture where it's like when Cain's blood when Abel's blood hit the earth and the earth cried. I'm just like, man, how many children crying out? The Bible talks about, I was like, I had a vision like the babies in heaven talking about asking God to avenge them for what I did to them. Like, that's still like you get sober, like, wait a minute, whoa. Mm-hmm. So I realized that abortion, even though, like Chad said, they've mastered making it a simple, just get an abortion, but it's actually a spiritual thing so deep to where it's leading all the way up to babies in heaven possibly saying, no, he needs to be judged. He needs to be judged for what they did. And so I know it's serious. And so I'm totally against abortion. That's me on this side, though. If I was to be a politician, though, if I was to be in politics, then I probably would have leaned towards, okay, y'all don't want the feds involved in it. Okay, then let y'all vote during the state level and y'all have at it or whatever. But to me, there's no right answer because the right answer is no abortion, no murder. That's the answer. So to me, even having a discussion about abortion is wrong on this core level, which is a wrong discussion to even have. You shouldn't murder babies. At the same time, they're politicians. People want Trump in office. People are tired of Joe Biden. So I guess the question is, how much blood do you want in your hands? Like, how much blood are you willing to wash your hands with to have somebody in office, somebody out of office? Joe Biden ran his whole campaign of getting Trump out. That's all he said. We got to get him out. Like, at what cost? Was it the cost of immigrants? Was it the cost of inflation? Was it the cost of crime? Was it the cost of like, look at the cost of just this one thing, getting Biden and getting Trump out of office. Now we're saying getting Trump in office, but it's going to be a cost associated with it. What's going to be the cost? And so I just think that I like us because we're just non-wavering believers. But if we're on the outside looking in, analyzing a sport, which is what this looks like a sport to me, I'm gonna just give my critique on the plays they should run. You know what I'm saying?
But
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from.
Speaking of sport, like what I wanted, like if okay, since we're giving a critique, like even things like Social Security, like if you're not tying those types of things to abortion, who's gonna pay for it, Joe? Y'all ain't having no babies. Like I want them to start to like paint the picture for these people. Like Social Security, y'all want it, but then you abort the very people that's supposed to be paying for you to retire. Like it's crazy. Like and when I watch them talk, I'm like, you're not painting this picture for people at all, even on the left or the right. Unfortunately, the left does a greater job of painting a illusion, and I don't think that the right paints a picture of anything really. Like,
right.
What is lower taxes to people who don't work? Like like, okay, thanks.
Well, the thing is, I mean, you're right, and you have a very good point. However, people who don't pay taxes and don't vote, or people who don't pay taxes and don't work, also don't vote unless there's some bus coming to pick them up.
Right.
You know what I mean, and take them to the polls. Or you got,
which is happening.
Or they'll go door to door. They'll go door to door.
Yeah, you got people going door to door ballot harvesting, or
HBCUs. I can tell you, they bust all of those kids in them HBCUs, gave them $50 to go and vote.
Right, or bribing them. Yeah, yeah, which is illegal. Well, is it illegal? I know it's illegal in some states. I don't know if it's illegal.
They call it volunteer. They make you do some stuff and then take you to vote.
Oh, so they find loopholes and exploit those loopholes then.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you mentioned Social Security, and there was I counted at least 2 times in the debate where Donald Trump attacked Joe Biden for he's trying to end Social Security, he's trying to ruin Social Security, which is very strange for me to hear a Republican attacking a Democrat for trying to end Social Security. I'm actually for the ending of Social Security. I'm for the ending of Medicaid. I'm for the ending of Medicare. So I don't know, like that attack basically presumes that Donald Trump is for Social Security, that he's for, and I get he was probably trying to make a point because he said that, you're allowing a lot of illegal immigrants to come over to the United States and you're getting them on Social Security, you're getting them on Medicare. So they're basically extracting all of these funds and all of these resources. Meanwhile, Americans are left with not as much. So it's in that way that you are ruining Social Security. So I get the talking point. However, I don't know, man. I'm just the way that my brain works is I want to roll back myriad government regulations. I want to get rid of half the people who work for the government, if not more. I want to get rid of over half of the departments that we have in the executive branch. We don't need a Department of Education. We don't need a Department of Energy. We don't need on and I can go. We don't need a climate change task force. We don't need any of this crap. And so my role as president will be a kind of scorched earth kind of role where I would basically get rid of a lot of these things. And I think in doing that, you're helping the economy, as it were, because it also helps with tax relief as well. So anyway, I understand that most Americans don't want that because most Americans want to be taken care of. And this is why someone like a Joe Biden can appeal to them. And this is a reason why, I think Blanche's point and your point, Crystal, that Trump says some of the things that he says, because he understands that given where people are mentally, given where people are psychologically and ideologically, I can't take a certain position as someone who's trying to win an election by way of the popular vote in the Electoral College. I can't say certain things that are going to go against certain people's stimuli and the way that they've been conditioned to think, because to do so would be to commit political suicide. It's unfortunate that that's where we are, but it is where we are nonetheless. But let's go ahead and
hold on, Chad. I have a question here on Instagram. How do you feel about do you all feel that Gavin Newsom is a legitimate threat to Trump if he was to run?
Oh, yeah.
I do, insofar that, to what I just spoke to earlier. where most Americans are conditioned to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And the fact is, Gavin Newsom speaks to that desire more so than Trump.
Yep. And will
when it
lie
comes to the
straight to your
masses of
face.
people.
Lie
And he'll
straight.
lie to you straight to your face. But then too, like the difference between someone like a Gavin Newsom and a Donald Trump is Gavin Newsom enjoys the luxury of having the whole media class behind him, validating him, supporting him. I believe that if Gavin Newsom were to run for president, he would receive the same kind of treatment that the press gave FDR when he came to office.
Yeah, for
Here's
sure.
somebody who will save us from this depression, save us from inflation, save us from this, that, and the third. I believe that he would get in office, and then you'll not only have Democrats in Congress who are turning over the keys essentially to him. You'll have Republicans even who are saying, well, we need to try to come together, and we need to, as Republicans, show that we're willing to be the bigger man and work with Gavin Newsom. And so that's the kind of thing that you'll have. And so again, I think there's a lot of people who are drawn to Trump. We see it all the time on social media. We see a lot of celebrities, a lot of rappers and so on, who are throwing their support behind Trump for reasons that I care not to get into right now. But I think the difference between I think the difference between a Trump and a Gavin Newsom, once again, is that Gavin Newsom appeals to or exploits that desire to be taken care of that most Americans have. I don't know. What do you think, Crystal?
No, I definitely feel like Gavin Newsom, I mean, like people are just like drawn to people who speak well, who talk like, has a certain look. And this man will sit there and lie to your face. And I'm starting to believe that that's what most people want. They really want to be lied to. I'm with you, Blanche, the whole forced labor. I think they wouldn't even realize that it's for, I mean, serious, like, hey, you can't eat unless you become a slave again because you don't have any skills. I don't think a lot of people would say, okay, well, let me go get skills. A lot of them would just go back into slavery. I mean, I'm telling you from like just being able to look at the environment that I'm in now. I lived in very, conservative areas, and I was a screaming liberal. And then when I was forced to live in an area where the policies that I perpetuated in the conservative areas actually were being implemented, I was shocked. It shocked me straight into conservatism. And I see the people, and I have great compassion for them. I don't think they belong in jail. I definitely think that they have to be taken care of, or else it's going to be madness, because it's such a large piece of the population that doesn't even have the mental acuity to do anything but hey, put this here and drop it here, like put this here and drop it here. Like they don't have it. And so they will start to rob, cheat, and steal, because I mean they won't have it. And so you have to give them something. And I think a Gavin Newsom would tell you, hey, you know what? We got jobs for you over here in this camp. And he would say it. He would literally say it with a straight face. Everybody would believe him, and they would be so happy that Gavin Newsom, G Daddy, gave them a job, gave them a card where they can get their food stamps, and they can smoke weed, and drink, and then go, I am fully convinced that they have dumbed down the American population. And I'll say one more thing really quickly. The World Economic Forum, I don't know if you guys have been watching it, Charles Schwab is stepping down. And his predecessor actually talks about the useless class, and nobody is talking about the useless class, like
useless eaters,
the useless eaters, and people are not understanding because maybe they feel like that they're not it. And he said, well, what are you going to do with them? He said, we'll keep them occupied with drugs and video games.
Yeah.
What a mess. What's your response to that question, Blanche? on IG.
I think Gavin Newsom is a real threat for what both of you all said. I think that he's able to speak to the decadence. And again, to me, if a person doesn't want to work, then that means they actually want to sin, because there's a certain type of virtue that comes with you completing a task to get something accomplished. So if somebody doesn't want to work, sin is going to be right around the corner. That's why California and these liberal places where there's a bunch of homelessness, that's why you get so much decadence, because the spirit in the place is, I want to be taken care of, especially for a grown man who wants to be taken care of. A woman wanting it from a man is different, but a grown man saying, I want to be taken care of, he's working with Satan, because his goal is to not be productive. How can God use him if he doesn't have an industry about himself? And so I think Gavin Newsom, my cousin did 23 years in prison, and he gets out and he looking on social media, he hugged up with Gavin Newsom. I'm like, y'all friends? I'm like, what the heck going on? Like, in prison 23 years, but he went in the 90s, and him and Gavin Newsom best buddies. I'm like, how you friends with this dude? But guess what? It's the programming, it's the propaganda. Gavin Newsom can speak to him, He seemed like such a nice guy, He had folks wearing the mask, but he wasn't wearing the mask. It's just all kind of stuff. But I just think Chad and Crystal, I think Crystal said it. These people, they don't want the truth. And I told Chad this a couple of months ago. Chad has some videos going viral. And I said the reason why they're going viral is because he's putting the content out with no side chatter. It's like you put a video out and there's nobody talking about, oh, this means this and this means he really meant this. No, it's just him talking. And so when you give these useless eaters something to eat, they're gonna consume it. They're gonna eat it. And so I liken most people to pigs. If you give a pig a steak or a hot dog, it don't matter. They're gonna devour them both the same. They don't care. They're just gonna eat. So I just feel like people are the same way. They just want to be. They want to consume something. And so the left has mastered the consumption department. They've mastered giving them what they want to eat. The right has not made their message palatable, and to me, it's because they don't connect the benefit of having these values, if that makes sense. Like they don't connect. What are the benefits of being a true conservative or true Christian conservative? What are the benefits of it? How does this play out 20 years from now? How does this play out 30 years from now? How does this not just I'm just opposed to abortion, I'm opposed to the left? No. How does my lifestyle and what I believe in, how does it play out? What does it look like if a country is like this versus a country like this? They don't articulate that message. And for some reason, I don't know if they want to be liked, if they don't want to come across as embraced. I don't know. But I kind of feel like conservatives have been put in this little box right now because they never had to really defend being conservative.
Yeah.
And now you got to. Now you got to actually defend that you. Tell me why you're not a racist. Okay, you don't want to be taxed. Like you don't believe in government. You don't believe in big government. Like now they actually got to defend themselves and not seem racist. You know how hard that is to be or not be a sellout. You know how hard it is to defend yourself and not be what the people are saying about you. Like it's almost like you stepping on eggshells, I don't believe in abortion. You don't? I mean, kinda. I mean, the state. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a difficult spot to be in. That's why I'd rather be on this side where I don't have to compromise. I can just, I can say what I invest in,
For God I live and for God I die.
Yeah,
there you go. Let's see here. We got a super chat from Robert Lamoa. He says, Ronald Reagan wasn't the last Christian president.
No.
Hold on. Do y'all mean Christian in I'm a Christian or I'm a Christian lifestyle?
You will know them by their fruit.
Yeah.
Well, that's none of them. They all that's zero here.
Yeah, that's what I said. There are no there. You can't. You got. I mean, like even Jesus. They wanted Jesus to run for office. The disciples was like, "Oh, we're gonna go and take." He knew that there was no space.
Can't do it.
There's no space for that, unfortunately. But there was a time that it was when we had, God, when God was over us, we had, like when he was our king essentially, and Moses had brought the children, the children of Israel out of Egypt, and God helped Moses set up. Well, Moses's grandfather said, who do we elect as judges? And he said, men, the number one requirement is to fear the Lord, men that fear the Lord. And unfortunately, like when you fear God, it doesn't the formula doesn't really work well, because in this day and age, people fear people. I mean, like, you fear people, you fear acceptance, you want to be liked, and if you want to get elected, you got to say this and you got to say it this way and you got to do that. And it just doesn't work as well with the secular culture.
Right. There you go. Larry Jake says, Chad, to get a Christian president, we need to be a Christian nation so it can organically happen. Otherwise, a Christian president in current times would be a fake, in my opinion. I agree.
Yes,
I agree 100%. This is why once again the work that we're doing is so important. This is the reason why people that I know who evangelize on the street, who seizes every opportunity to tell strangers about Jesus, is so important. This is the reason why, again, we're given the way that we think. We're given the circles we roll in. We're given, those of us who can sing. We're given those of us who are artistically creative. We're given these skills, these talents, these predispositions, and we had better use them in the service of our Lord. Because if we're not, then we're using them in the service of the prince of the power of the air. And that's just real. So let's see here. We got one from, he says, golf off for the White House. That was the cringiest moment of the entire debate.
It was so cringy. You're so right. It was cringy. I was like, what the hell is happening here?
I got a handicap of 58 and I was able to hit a hole in one.
I had a 6.
I'm like,
he won't play me in golf. He won't play me in golf. What are we talking about?
I'll play you. You carry your own clubs? Shut up. I'm gonna make you carry them. Shut
up. Okay, so we're gonna open it up for closing remarks. So this Sunday, I want to save the title of the show, or what we'll be going over for this weekend, and surprise y'all. It's going to have something to do with so-called allies. We did a show on allies before, so-called white allies, but we're going to open it up to other races, not just white folks, but other races to call themselves trying to pamper and pander to the blacks. So anyway, Chuck is not going to be available this Sunday because it's he and his wife's anniversary, I think. I thought they already had an anniversary.
Yeah, I thought so too. I'm like, how many gonna have? Goodness,
he said it on Sunday.
He said something. He said he's going to be out for some reason. Yeah, I could have sworn too. I know it hasn't been a year already.
Like that. Don't do it like that.
Listen, I remember seeing pictures and everything. I'm serious. Like, they had
Look, hold on. They're like Jackie and Doug. They have it every month.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. They re-up every 5 minutes. So Crystal will be back with us this Sunday. So that's exciting. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, we'll give some closing remarks on our overall statement of the our overall takeaway from the debate. I almost said election. Mine are that, my hat does go off to CNN. Surprisingly, I think that for the most part, they asked some pretty interesting and substantive questions. I wasn't expecting that. And then 2, I like the fact that they didn't have a live audience. I really like that, because nothing annoys me more than people cheering in the stands over a politician saying a thing,
right?
En masse. Like, to me, like, these are not, rock stars. These are not, it's not as, I don't know. For me, it's like we're talking about the fate of our country, the trajectory of our country, and to have people in the audience hooping and hollering, to me, is a distraction. So I like the fact that they didn't have a live audience. I think Trump, if I were to grade him, I would give him about a 75. I would give him a 75. I would give I would put Joe Biden on the short bus. So he's not graded on the same scale
as
the rest of us.
Yeah, a big curve.
And that's not to offend anybody. But you know, I had some friends who were on the short bus. So anyway, but those are my overall takeaways from the debate tonight. Crystal, what were your thoughts?
I still stand by. I don't feel like President Trump had to defend his record. I think he did an awesome job as president, and I wish he did not agree to the debate. If I had to give him a rating, I am loyal. I am a MAGA girl, Make America Great Again girl. So I'm gonna give him a 100%. I'm loyal. I don't know. What do you want?
So you lie.
For me? I do. Sorry. So do you. So does everybody else. It's true. So what I will say is I like a live audience, because when you're dealing with people who don't understand politics, sometimes it gives them some kind of social cue that, like, that was a good thing, or that was a not so good thing, or that was a boo. I don't know if it didn't help me, but I think it kind of helps a lot of people. I do think that CNN did a good job of trying to not seem like they were biased. They tried to seem seriously. They were boring. And I didn't like the debate at all, but you know, whatever. I enjoyed hanging out with you guys more than anything. So that's my final take.
So you wanted to see a train crash dumpster fire is what you wanted to see.
We just established by Blanch that this is a sport. I wanted to see beep, beep, beep. I wanted to see them talking over each other. I wanted to see,
so
your son is a crackhead.
So you just discredited yourself then.
I'm just messy.
You wanted to see a Jerry Springer show. You didn't want to see an actual substantive debate over the real issues that are concerning us in these modern times.
No, I've heard everything that they had to say. We've all heard it. It was boring. I really wanted them to.
I'd prefer to be boring. I don't want no outside noise, no distraction. Y'all saw I had to mute you and Crystal.
Oh yeah, I saw that. He put us in timeout. He was like,
I know. It was good though. I was gonna be quiet because I don't want to ruin it for people. He called me black. Did you see? He said it's like blacks in the theater. He know me and Blanch are not black. I was offended, but I was offended into quietness. So that's what offense is good.
It works.
Offense is good.
We in the movies talking to the screen, huh?
Call us Black Blanch. Where they do that
at? Yeah. I wish Trump would have bought out Joe Biden's daughter with that diary.
Oh yeah.
That would have been, listen, that would have just CNN would have cut that. They tried to cut Joe Biden's mic the one time. You saw they cut his mic off, a dude was talking. But it was like, we got to reprogram him, man. It was like, listen, it was like L2, F7. Listen, we got to reprogram him.
Got to change his batteries.
Right.
Go ahead, Blanch.
Yeah, I gave Trump a C+, B-, you know. Again, it wasn't that hard to beat Joe Biden. But I will say that Joe Biden, he did better than I thought. So I will give him credit for actually making it through. And I give him credit for not totally veering off course. He kind of, you know, stayed for the most part in pocket. I give CNN credit, but I also saw a chink in the armor. And I saw a chink in the armor with CNN because normally CNN wouldn't be that well behaved, but they know if they were biased on tonight, it would have been disastrous. Like it would have shot Trump to the top. So they were very careful and cautious to not seem like they were picking sides because they know how big of a threat Trump is. But overall, I thought it was entertaining as much as it could be. I agree with Crystal on one thing, that Trump's record spoke for itself when he was president. I think he should have really focused, to me, on, I guess, bringing the country out of this depression we're in, I guess, a small depression or whatever. But I think he did all right. I mean, it wasn't hard defeating Joe Biden. So I was entertained.
Okay. Yeah, it was actually quite entertaining. I will say that. Let's see. Sun Wukong says politics comes from two Latin words, Paul.
Polly.
Polly.
Oh, Polly.
Which
that
is many.
Like yeah, Polly, which is many ticks, blood-sucking creatures. It's actually Greek for city affairs. Nice.
Many blood-sucking creatures.
Many blood-sucking creatures. And guess what? We can't blame them because we give our blood up willingly. Them folks ain't taking nothing from us. We sticking our arms out.
Yeah, Polly ticks, many little mosquitoes and ticks and fleas and lice. Thank y'all for rocking with us tonight. We'll see y'all Sunday. Blanch, are you gonna go live? Do any solo lives between now and Sunday?
Saturday,
y'all catch Blanch on Saturday, and we will be back on Sunday. Love y'all. Peace.